Now, MaRS is a powerful example of Ridley's notion. It's a place where the best laid plans to stop by for 20 minutes can turn into 2 hours of sharing ideas, meeting new people, learning new things. And I know this because we advise or bank most of the companies within MaRS. Now, I've been asked to speak about the role that the banking sector plays in commercialization. Rafi also said that one of the important parts of today's discussion was to have a candid, open discussion. And this is a bit of a tough topic, because while banks plainly clear a role, banks in themselves cannot be the total solution. But I would like to highlight some of the things, firstly, that we do. 16 years ago, in our case, RBC, we created a dedicated group of individuals in the knowledge-based industry sector in Canada. This group consists of growth companies in emerging market sectors and R&D-orientated, highly innovative, export-orientated, with high growth potential. Our clients comprise a full range from very small early stage to the largest multinationals. It is also one of the fastest growing sectors in our Canadian business, with double-digit growth, close to 15% in 2009. And we're very honored to be the leading bank in this sector. We got to be the market leader because we've been working with knowledge-based companies for a decade and a half through all points of the cycle. We're the only bank with a strategic advisor and specialists in knowledge-based businesses. We have specialists in information and communication technology, clean tech, media and entertainment, and life sciences and healthcare. Because of this specialization, we understand the business models and can provide customized business advice and provide financial solutions that enable the journey to commercialization. This includes debt capital, advice, and connections to angels, VCs, and government funding. We also refer companies to each other with material results again and again. Just as an example, one of the individuals with RBC was here this morning, Grant Tipler, who works in our life science and health services sector, was out seeing one of our biotech companies and asked the CEO what their biggest issue was. He responded that his biggest problem was dealing with the manufacturer and during their product trials in Germany. Grant arranged for some introductions, and the trials are now taking place very successfully right here in Toronto. In other words, our longevity in the knowledge economy allows us to see possibilities for connections that others don't, and we use this knowledge benefit to the value of our clients. Our work with knowledge-based businesses through MaRS and across Ontario and through organizations like Clean Tech North America makes us acutely, though, aware of their challenges. Complexity related to globalization, world-scale competition, regulatory issues, etc., and early-stage companies to be particularly harm-strung with insufficient access to capital. We typically lend capital at a slightly later stage of a company's development, but bridging the funding gap between early-stage companies, R&D, and commercialization is a persistent problem. As we all know here, Canada certainly doesn't suffer from a lack of pure research. It is abundant and it is well-funded. Applied research, which moves an idea towards commercialization, is our Achilles heel because of the paucity of funding. As it stands today, countries like Israel and the United States are well ahead of us in terms of programs and financial support to the knowledge-based economy. Although I always emphasize, and I can't emphasize this enough, it's one of the reasons for today's discussions, we can't solve our problems by imitating others. We can certainly learn from what others are doing, but the dynamics across each country and each region is different, and we have to find made-in-Canada solutions. Now, we often get the question, and I'm sure you would ask it, why don't the banks do more to invest in early-stage companies? Although we do have some equity investments that take place in funds of funds, the simple answer is that we are in the business of lending advice and senior capital as opposed to venture capital. We are not qualified as venture capitalists or capable of lending the management support that good venture capitalists can provide to a company's success. Banks are first or foremost providers of debt, and early-stage companies don't require debt, they require equity. It is a later stage of development where banks can play a broader role in capital formation. But we do know who does make these kinds of investment, what government programs are available, and we make hundreds of connections, as I said, every year for our clients to various funding parties, venture capitalists, etc. So in a world where it's hard to find capital, one of the things that we can bring to the table is our knowledge. But there is a very large difference between what venture capital firms do financially for knowledge-based businesses and what banks like RBC does. As I said, we have a different risk profile than venture capital firms. Financing by banks is short to medium-term collateralized-based debt financing that requires regular cash flows, regular interest payments, and principal payments. For a startup, debt financing assumptions of cash flow can be extremely difficult, and as you well know, timeframes are much different than those would be expected in the banking industry. Venture capital is a better option because of its long-term horizons and because it doesn't require collateral, thus allowing the company to preserve the important cash flow that would otherwise go to debt repayment. As startups often say, they sleep much better when they don't have to worry about an impending interest payment or covenant. When a venture capital takes a stake in a company, be it in the form of common, preferred, convertible, warrants, or options, its goal is to exit its investment at some later stage, either through the sale to a third party or to other equity investors or through a stock market listing. This type of capital infusion reduces balance sheet leverage as opposed to bank financing, which of course does the opposite by increasing leverage. In addition, the VC operating model is to make a number of investments with the hopes that a small number works out exceedingly well. It then makes its money by selling the company or merging it with other companies. Banks like RBC make their money on interest spreads. It would be foolish to earn debt returns on what amounts to equity investments. In addition, quarterly results in accounting don't lend themselves to private equity investments. And as a matter of interest, banking regulation, and this is extremely important, something you should be even concerned about. Banking regulation today is not only discouraged, it's actually preventing banks from being in the venture capital business or providing private equity investments. So as much as I do believe that banks play a role in facilitating early stage companies, banks can't on themselves be the solution with respect to this perennial issue of underfunding of early stage companies. So how does Canada and Ontario solve the early stage funding shortfall? In my view, it's a lot of little things, a shotgun approach, if you will, typical Canadian compromise solution. We will never have a VC market developed like you have in the Silicon Valley. We just don't have the size and the scale. Nor do we have governments that can afford to spend billions and billions on commercialization, which is occurring and starting to occur now in some emerging markets. Our solution, as I said earlier, has to work for Canada, a small country with an incredibly skilled and talented workforce, outstanding science, but with small and limited domestic markets. Our solution has to be a combination, in my view, of different initiatives. Government programs are essential, and they have to be increased and supported. Things like R&D tax credits, subsidized financing programs from our governments are essential. Ways to give easy access to the VCs from other countries like the United States and around the world. We have to ensure that we provide easy access, one of the roles from MaRS. We have to have tax equality for venture capital companies that invest in Canadian companies. Venture capital companies around the world have the opportunity to look at thousands and thousands of investment opportunities. We have to build relationships and make it easy for them to look at opportunities to put money into Canadian organizations. Specialty funds like those that exist within MaRS or governments. RBC, for example, as I say, we don't make a lot of direct equity investments, but we've made a significant contribution to the Ontario Venture Capital Fund. Angel programs and initiatives that provide information sharing and connect potential investors with companies is something that Canada can do and must do more of. And of course, we have to continue to try to develop a domestic venture capital industry step by step in this country. And I know there'll be some discussion by and with some venture capital companies in this country later in the discussion. It is not easy, but we've got to continue to chip away at it and find ways to do it. Now, just because banks like RBC don't provide financing as often for early stage companies doesn't mean, as I say, that we're not involved at the incubator stage. Unlike other banks who wait for these stable cash flows, we try to be there at the beginning. At this stage, our client may not have a fully built out their businesses, but they have developed research into a marketable idea. So as I said, we bring advice, our network, our expertise, all of which are helpful to an early stage company. By helping early, our objective and what we're betting on is that we will be the bank of choice when that company starts to utilize more fully developed banking services. We follow this process with companies like OpenText, a public high-tech company, or Arctic DX, a company that developed molecular tests for macular degeneration and its process that makes a real difference in the ultimate success of an early-stage company. I'll give you one more example. We met a company a few years ago, a company called Clarin. Their idea was software for image-guided surgery using CT scans. One application was software designed to take a CT scan and perform a virtual colonoscopy for diagnostic purposes. In this case, we provided a loan against tax credits. This was secured financing, a business that banks are in. And we successfully introduced the company to a U.S. venture capital firm. And when Clarin moved out of MaRS, which is where they were located, we provided a mortgage on their new building. The company now provides systems to medical centers throughout North America and in Europe, China, and Japan. We're proud to continue to be a contributor to their success, and our deep understanding of their business allows us to continue to provide debt, banking services, but importantly as well, advice and counsel. Canada has a tremendous opportunity in its knowledge-based industries. Canada's bio-based economy is valued at more than $78 billion and is considered foundational to our national economy. In media and entertainment, we expect the shift from physical distribution to digital distribution of content, and that will generate a new wealth of opportunities in this country. Clean tech industry grew by almost 50% during the financial crisis of the past 2 years and is rapidly shifting from a domestic market to an export market. Canada has the potential to build world-class companies in this space, with virtually all clean tech companies looking to move beyond our borders. In IT, despite a very strong growth in IT services, our productivity in this sector is lagging the U.S. and other countries due to underinvestment and a shortage of skilled people, but attracting a skilled labor force plays into our strengths. We do have lots of potential, despite many challenges. Canadian companies in the knowledge-based industry can and are today translating new ideas into real and economically significant contributions for our country. For us at RBC, it is a real privilege and immensely satisfying to be part of this process with our clients, with organizations like MaRS, and with many other partners who have played a role in the success of this key industry. But we have to find ways to take it collectively to the next level. We can't sit back and say it's the fault of government, it's the fault of the banking industry, it's the fault of lack of innovation and R&D in Canadian institutions. We have to collectively come together and work on ways to improve and do a better job. The future vitality and the future productivity of our country will be driven by our collective success in this area. It's the reason why it's extremely important for gathering like today's discussion. I would like to thank you for your attention, but more importantly, I would encourage you to fully participate and hope you all enjoy and get a lot out of the conference today. So thank you very much, and I'd be happy to take any questions.